So we're locked in right now on a pattern that's starting to look very familiar, ladies and gentlemen. What began with fraud we've been talking about in Minnesota covering is now surfacing in Maine tied to Somali fraud, according to reports. Maine's Democrat Governor Janet Mills approved state contracts for a Somali NGO that was involved in registering migrants to vote in the 2022 election. Now that same organization is under investigation for Medicaid fraud. And so, once again, you got taxpayer money, political connections, and a system being manipulated for political advantage. As always, make sure you smash the thumbs up. Let me know you love the video. Subscribe to the channel for more and share this video. That way more people see what's really going on.
New England's Homeland Security Investigations Unit is taking a closer look at Maine businesses.
The agency shared these photos on X, reminding employers that hiring unauthorized workers carries serious penalties and can undermine national security. The agency says it is auditing companies to check for fraud and whether workers are legally employed. We reached out to authorities asking for an interview, but we have not yet heard back. However, we were able to confirm with a spokesperson for Gateway Community Services, LLC, that its Lewiston location did get a visit from Homeland Security agents.
The spokesperson could not confirm when agents were there, but Homeland posted those photos Tuesday. That same healthcare company is facing accusations of MaineCare fraud, and it's fighting back against those accusations from Republican lawmakers.
Yeah, so let me break this down. Gateway Community Services, the business at the center of all of this, tried to game the system by setting up two entities with the same name. One nonprofit and one for-profit, same name, same building, practically the same office. And so now you've got a nonprofit gateway and a for-profit gateway operating side by side, and people familiar with the case are saying that structure is exactly what made the alleged fraud possible.
Those lawmakers held a news conference yesterday centering around Gateway Community Services, which is an LLC. News Center Maine's Christian Hartz is here to break down some of the confusion that has popped up involving that company. Christian?
Hi, Chris and Bailey. So there are two separate but related entities in this story about alleged Medicaid fraud. The first is that LLC, Gateway Community Services, and the other is a nonprofit, Gateway Community Services Maine. The LLC is the one under investigation for possible fraud after a state audit, not the nonprofit. But as State House Republicans made clear, they see a clear connection between the two that goes beyond a similar name.
I believe what we have uncovered so far is only scratching the surface of fraud here in Maine.
Gateway has two separate but related organizations in Maine. Gateway Community Services Maine, the nonprofit, and Gateway Community Services LLC, the company. Both were founded in 2016 by Abdullahi Ali, a Somali refugee who resettled in Maine around 2009. Not only do they share a founder, they share addresses, one on Canal Street in Lewiston, the other on Forest Avenue in Portland. According to the company Gateway's lawyer, Ali is no longer involved with the nonprofit. He also said the nonprofit and company do not share staff. He said while the two share addresses, the nonprofit rents space from the company. The Department of Health and Human Services is investigating a credible allegation of fraud against Gateway, the company. DAHS found through a routine audit that Gateway received more than $1 million from MaineCare from 2021 to 2022. That audit found errors in Gateway's billing, either for services Gateway never performed or ones that MaineCare does not cover. The nonprofit is also under investigation. That is by the U.S. House Oversight Committee.
Congressman James Comer has launched a federal investigation and has requested bank records connected to Gateway and related entities.
The company's lawyer says the nonprofit does not bill MaineCare. According to a statement from the board of directors, the nonprofit is funded through grants and charitable contributions.
Why was Gateway Community Services, a company that had already received multiple notices of overbilling, allowed to sit on a steering committee to receive funding tied to the Lewiston Shooting Victims Fund?
But a spokesperson for the Maine Community Fund says that's not exactly correct. She said the nonprofit, not the company, was on the steering committee and received funds.
A company whose CEO reportedly spent time traveling to Somalia and running for president there and organizing a privately funded militia.
According to a statement from the company Gateway, Ali did once run for elected office in Somalia. He also did provide, quote, modest financial support for the Jubaland State Forces. That money was apparently for logistical, medical, and supply support. The statement goes on to say the use of militias weaponizes established stereotypes of Somali people.
And so, yeah, you got a company whose owner was running for political office in Somalia, and that same company is under investigation for alleged fraud, including overbilling the government and submitting false invoices. Clearly, something isn't adding up, right? And what investigators are now uncovering is that this organization is also politically connected to the Democrat Party in Maine and the governor, Janet Mills. And so this isn't just a Medicaid fraud probe anymore. It now raises questions about political connections, state contracts, and alleged migrant voter registration activities, all intersecting with a broader Somali-linked Medicaid fraud investigation sitting right in the center. Take a listen.
Nonprofits and forming Medicaid agencies. The particular agency in question is called Gateway Community Services. And it's a for-profit company that just has a 501c3 filing in order to accept grant money when you need a C3 filing. But it has an office on Canal Street in Lewiston. And I was actually on site there investigating and doing some monologues in front of the building when about 15 HSI agents rolled up with what appeared to be a search warrant. It looked like they were coming there to take away computers and filing cabinets. And what's interesting about that building, Guy, is it's kind of a nexus for a host of migrant-run NGOs. There's the Maine Immigrant Right Coalition there, Generational NOR, a bunch of home health care agencies that also bill Medicaid, or as we call it in Maine, Maine Care. So this is a building that serves as kind of a catch-all space for tons of migrant organizations. And another thing I would say about this particular location and Gateway Community Services is that it's not just a Somali Medicaid fraud, it's a Somali Democrat Medicaid fraud, because this is an organization with elaborate and extensive ties to the Maine Democratic Party, including Governor Janet Mills and her administration. There are two Democratic lawmakers, Representative Yusuf and Representative Decca DeLocke, who have both, they're state lawmakers, members of the Democratic Party. And Janet Mills, when she was forming the Office of New Americans as a migrant resettlement agency for the state of Maine, picked a woman named Eklis Ahmed, who is a former employee of Gateway Community Services. And furthermore, Gateway received many no-bid contracts from the Mills administration for the purposes of doing community health outreach work, which involved registering migrants to vote in the 2022 election. So this is not just any run-of-the-mill organization that was fraudulently billing Medicaid, allegedly. It's one that was very, very well tied and connected to the Maine Democratic Party and remains tied to the Democratic Party.
Wow. Wow. This is insane, ladies and gentlemen. Truly insane. Because what we're starting to see is a pattern in these Democrat-run states. And at some point, you have to ask the obvious question. How many coincidences are we supposed to ignore? Because what it keeps looking like is that in order for Democrats to secure power, some sort of fraud has to be involved. Think about what's being laid out here. You've got a company run by an individual who was running for political office in Somalia, now under investigation for alleged fraud. At the same time, we're learning that this very company was receiving contracts tied to registering migrant voters connected to the governor. They're essentially showing you how the system worked in these blue states. And if this is starting to sound familiar, it should, because it's very reminiscent of what's been going on in Minnesota. And so let's jump into this next clip where Whistleblower from Maine explains what he saw firsthand. Take a listen.
On the back end with, the billing claims that were just not accurate, not adding up, times not adding up, unsure that staff actually, performed the job functions in the home of the clients. I made a connection from Gateway to the Minnesota people by, them telling me about their family they had in Minnesota. The executives of Gateway, the Somalian executives, had family that they used to visit in Minnesota. Their family used to visit them from Minnesota. And they used to talk about the agencies they ran out there. It was a similar kind of setup, So there was a connection there between all of them.
Christopher, how long had this been going on? You were at Gateway for quite some time. How long do you think this has been going on, this fraud?
I was there from 2018 to recently 2025, and I hadn't realized about the audit that had been completed in 2018. So before I even got there, they were complicit in some of this stuff. And that was corroborated by the audits that were reported in the Steve Robinson article from the Maine Wire. That's what really made me come forward, because I had been reaching out, internally, blowing the whistle since 2024, early 2024, and I wasn't getting anywhere. So when I saw his reporting in March of 2025, and Gateway was talking about it internally, how it was just some racist reporter, reporting this stuff about them, I just made the connection, and I just, I hadn't known about him or the Maine Wire or any of this stuff. So I had my own intuition that led me to find what I found.
And how much? What do you think? What do you think's the extent of the fraud?
Oh man, it could be in the millions. The audit revealed almost $1 million back in 2018 in overbilling, and our programs had grown significantly since then. One of the programs I worked in was an entirely new program, so who knows? Like, it could be in the millions all those years. 7 years I was there, and I didn't see a lot of stuff at first, but during the pandemic, especially the last few years, I've been working remote from Florida, and so I didn't see any of the people, I didn't see any of the staffs in person, none of that stuff. I just saw the massive amount of turnover, new people coming in, a lot of migrant community getting jobs, a lot of new migrant clients, stuff like that, and like a lot of the stuff I just couldn't verify. There was no way for me to verify that what I was billing out was real, was accurate at all.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're learning about what happened in Minnesota. I think everyone in Maine should be on the lookout as well. We appreciate you blowing the whistle and sharing the information with us here today. It's all alleged at this point, but this is something that everybody in Minnesota should be asking questions about, rather everyone in Maine.
Here's what's being laid out, ladies and gentlemen. According to the allegations, Gateway Community Services wasn't just operating as one organization. We heard that from the beginning, right? It was structured as two separate entities, a for-profit company and a nonprofit, both using the same name. And that matters because it meant each entity could tap into different streams of government funding. And so when you understand the finesse they were trying to pull, where they're claiming that Democrat operatives funneled money into both sides of this setup to achieve political leverage, buy goodwill in communities, expand the voter base, and strengthening Democratic positionings in Maine. And so they had everything laid out. They had the whole system set up from beginning to end. And so the allegation suggests that taxpayer money didn't just stop at the services, that some of it may have cycled back through the organizations like Gateway and potentially reemerge as political support or campaign funding, even benefiting the Democrat politicians in that state, such as Janet Mills, the governor. And so the accusation isn't just fraud. What you were seeing is a loop: public money in, political advantage out. And so that's what they're investigating out in Maine, and the connection to Minnesota, where they were doing similar things out there, and family members were communicating and allegedly about what their operation and how they had things set up in one state versus what they were doing out in another, which is absolutely insane. But share your thoughts. Drop your comments down below. I appreciate when you chime in. Don't forget, smash that thumbs up. Let me know you love the video. Subscribe to the channel for more. And share this video. That way more people see what's really going on. And until next time.